Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you have a great and wonderful day. And unfortunately for us, as always, it's never really a great time for us when it comes to Joe Biden. Because when it comes to Joe Biden, he always has to make things worse for the American people. And I'm going to go over a few things of what he's doing, like increasing the tax rate to 44.6%, which is insane and is the highest in history. On top of that, it's on pretty much unrealized gains. So, that being said, it's not great. Now, this may or may not affect you currently right now, but it will at some point or the another eventually. So, I'm going to go over this. So, we here at President, we have this here from the Watch Guru. It says, President Biden calls for 44.6% capital gains tax. In March, President Biden proposed a 44.6% capital gains tax in the 2025 government budget, the highest in history. The proposal includes a 25% tax on unrealized gains for high net worth individuals. A quote from the March budget proposes reads, Together, the proposals would increase the top marginal rate on long-term capital gains and qualify dividends to 44.6%. The source of the 44.6% rate is a footnote from the general explanations of the administration's fiscal year 2025 revenue proposals. And it reads, in relevant part, a separate proposal would first raise the top ordinary rate to 39.6%. An additional proposal would increase the net investment income tax rate by 1.2%, points up above $400,000. Together, the proposals would increase the top marginal rate on long-term capital gains and qualify dividends to 44.6%. The White House looks for the proposal to raise long-term capital gains and qualify dividends rates for taxpayers. How will Biden's proposed capital tax rate affect the upper class? However, the proposed rate hike isn't guaranteed. The 44.6% rate would only come to fruition under a separate proposal from the Biden administration's main capital gains rate increase. Furthermore, it would only apply to those individuals with taxable income above $1 million and investment income above $400,000. Thus, high earners are the main targets for the proposal. Now, here's the problem that we have here with unrealized gains. I'm going to try to explain this to you with this and go through other things as well. Unrealized gains are gains that are on paper only are called unrealized gains. For example, if you bought a share for $10, it's now worth $12, and it's now worth $12, you have an unrealized gain of $2. You won't pay any taxes until you sell the share. Unrealized gains can be very important if you invest in funds, however. But again, let me show exactly what this means, essentially. Say, for instance, you have a computer, right? Like, for my example. My computer I bought for essentially, $1,200, give or take, maybe a little bit more. Now it's probably worth around $2,000 because, obviously I put more money into it and what have you. But for whatever reason, my computer is more expensive just because, well, I have more newer parts, or rather, or for the matter, not new parts, but the parts in it became more expensive over time just due to the fact of, how rare it is. Or a better example is that you have a car, and a car is worth this amount, but then for whatever reason, the car is worth X amount more because of how expensive it is or what have you over time. And you have to pay taxes for anything that gets increased in value. Like if you have a house, and the house is worth $500,000 or what have you at first when you bought it, and then the house is goes up in price for for what you did to it, what you added to it, or whatever, and the house is worth like $2 million, $1 million for whatever reason. It increased a bit. You have to pay the taxes on those unrealized gains, and if you don't have the money to pay for those taxes, then you have to sell something of that house to pay for those taxes. And that's the problem here, is that this actually does affect people at some point because over time, it just keeps on increasing, and it affects other people. So the only other way that you can avoid this is to, have the taxes lowered and not have to tax unrealized gains. This also has another problem with the rich. They says, this is going to affect the rich people. Well, the problem is that the rich people are just going to leave the country because they can't pay certain taxes or whatever, or what have you, and they're just going to leave the country and go to a place that doesn't have such high taxes, which means they take the jobs with them, and then it makes more people poor. It is not really a great thing because it has negative effects. This happened a few times in our country because, they just don't want to pay the taxes that are here. So it has an effect there because it will trickle down to the people that are actually need to work, and what have you. This is the problem. And if your car is worth X amount when you bought it, and then now it's worth more, you have to pay taxes on top of the extra amount of money that you would have. And if you can't pay the taxes, you have to sell the car, right? Because you can't pay for it because of the unrealized gains tax. Or same thing I said, like the house. You have to sell parts or whatever the house to pay for the actual for the price for the taxes. So it's not really beneficial here. This is insane. I'm not quite sure what Biden is doing, but this is the way they operate here, and they slowly encroach onto your property or whatever when this happens. So I think here that it might be a best idea to get this guy out before he completely ruins the country, and it's the highest in history. I think we need to do less taxes, especially in this day and age, because again, people just find the odd thing is that, it's always the rich people, and I agree to some extent that the rich people do need to pay some sort of taxes. I'm not really against this. However, taxing the rich so much to where they may actually want to leave the country, so where they have to pay so many taxes, is insanity to me. And then when they leave, you actually, what ends up happening is that they take the jobs, and then you don't have a job anymore. Then you're laid off. And then now you're going to find another job. And if there's not enough jobs, it just becomes worse and worse. And again, the things just start going over time. This is not good. I think this is a huge problem here. And I may not do too great with the whole economy type thing, or when it comes down to taxes and stuff like that. But I can even see that this is not a great idea. This is going to have pretty huge negative effect on the American people someday or another. It may not be a year, it may not be 3 years, but it will have a bad effect on the American people due to inflation and stuff like that coming soon. So perhaps we should maybe remove this guy before he ruins everything else. Alright guys, that's it for the video. Like, guys, share. As always, take care, my friends.
I'm discussing about what I see in public. Even people closest to us can't be trusted, because it's algorithmic disease, the social media.